Welcome on into BKL Nightly. This is the Let's Talk Ball edition. One day late, I know. Look, it's a Thursday game week. Everything's kind of weird. Thad Brown here, Carl Jones with me as well. Every single week, we go over the all-22 film from the Bills game, check out the X's and the O's, and bring you our thoughts on where the Bills are and where they should be going forward. This is Bills and Bucks. A lot of offensive fireworks to talk about in this one. Carl, Josh Allen, 6-touchdown game, won his 17th AFC Player of the Week award thanks to it. But then on Tuesday, there he is talking about, oh, I did this wrong, I did that wrong. And there were a lot of media questions about, look how humble Josh is. Isn't that nice and all that stuff. But from watching this game over, this was probably one of the worst 6-touchdown games you'll ever see. Mind you, there's been like, 3? So it's the third best. Regardless, Josh Allen was not superb in this game.
Yeah, down to down. I think that's the way I would phrase it. Like his highs are high and obviously his lows were, we're over here throwing chest passes like we LeBron James in the NBA or something. But I think down to down wasn't great. But I said it after the game, and I've said it on a couple other platforms, and I'll say it here. I go back to that Aaron Rodgers quote where he said a few years back, where he said, down years for me are career years for everybody else. And I know that if Sam Darnold played that exact same game that Josh Allen had against the Buccaneers, we will be clamoring for Sam Darnold and saying Sam Darnold played out of his mind, which he would have if he put up 6 touchdowns, 3 rushing, 3 passing. But in terms of Josh Allen standards, and that's what we're going to grade 17 on, there were a bunch of missed throws. There were a bunch of turned down throws. And Josh even alluded to it himself on the Tyrell Shavers play where he was like, yeah, I had 2 options that I probably should have pulled the trigger on. So, like, this isn't me projecting here and saying, like, oh, I'm playing Monday morning quarterback and I know what he's supposed to do. 17 said it himself. And he alluded to it at the presser yesterday on a couple of them, like it was equipment issue and he hit himself and mechanics and things of that nature. So, he still had a lot of production. Don't get it twisted. Thank him. I want to thank him for helping me win my fantasy football league this week. But nonetheless, a very up and down performance by 17.
I was certainly during the game checking my teams and wondering if I was facing Josh Allen on the other side of any of them. I got away with it this week. The thing with this discussion, it's not about the Reggie Gilliam 2-point conversion where he said he hit his thigh pad. It's not about the Josh Palmer crosser where he said he was kind of on the wrong step and missed it, or the Khalil Shakir miss where he said the wind got the ball. Those things are all fine. They happen. The turn down throws is why I really wanted to bring it up, because it's something we've been talking about all year long. And I don't think the 6-touchdown game should mask the fact that the passing game issues that we've been seeing week after week, that we've been talking about week after week, still turned up in this game. Not as much, and certainly not as a concern, because 17 was 17 and really made some of those amazing plays. But whether this is repeatable is the continued question that we come to on these shows. And again, there were things, Gabe Davis, to be honest, should have had 3 or 4 more catches because he was open a lot in this game.
Yeah, and I think that, so it's a catch-22 though. I think that this for the first week since maybe the Ravens' fourth quarter, I thought that they unlocked the passing game in terms of just the entire playbook was at his disposal. But we're like, hey, there are going to be some times where we're going to be in a shotgun and you just drop back and just try to be surgical with it. And you saw it on that Tyrell Shavers deep out or comeback, whatever that was, I believe in the second quarter. You saw it at other times where they were doing the dagger concept for those at home. That means someone's clearing something out and there's a dig right behind it. Think of Tyrell Shavers' catch over the middle of the field. But then you also, when you lean into that, there's also going to come some volatility with some poor decisions in terms of turnovers, but also maybe not always trusting what you see. And to Josh's defense here, I don't know how often he's been put in that mode this year. So maybe he still has to get a little bit more comfortable playing that style. But even when they weren't playing that style, the more conservative stuff, he still was turning down stuff. So I want to see more of this. I think that this is a good recipe for them going forward, considering that their defense isn't going to be a unit that you can rely on to hold a team under 24, especially in January. But I leave a little bit encouraged that they are at least willing to tap into this if the opportunity arises.
And that's where I want to go with this. And you kind of pushed it this way too, that even though Josh Allen is this MVP quarterback, he is kind of a finished product, right? We know who he is. He's ridiculously good. That still doesn't mean that he can't figure some things out as the season goes along, to where this is now, as you said, maybe, perhaps, and I don't want to go too far and say, oh, the Bills' offense is great, it's going to be fine.
Right.
But this is a step in the right direction. And Carl, Josh can still kind of learn and gain a feel for what this offense is going to be like, a little more open like it was against Tampa, correct?
Yes, and I mean, the personnel is still changing out around him. I mean, there's still no Kincaid. Josh Palmer is finally back, and he looked healthy. I'll give him that against the Buccaneers. but Gabe Davis is now in the lineup. Tyrell Shavers is now in the lineup. We'll see about Keon Coleman. There's still a lot of moving parts to where I understand maybe there's some give and take on things he's trust and still has to learn how to give his confidence in that direction as well.
There were a number of things in this passing game that I thought were circumstantially beneficial. I thought the first touchdown drive, there was probably a ball that should have been intercepted, followed by a fumble the Bills got away with. The Shavers play and the screen that goes to the house, great plays, things you do not want to build your offense around. A face mask penalty end of the game that helped for a touchdown. Those stuff all, to me, makes me a little skeptical about how much this can happen again. But I like the point you're making with, look, this was better. The offense was more open, and this is something that Josh Allen can work with going forward. A big part of why this worked so well was Joe Brady had himself a very, very nice game. I know you and I both have stuff we want to talk about. I'll let you have the floor first with the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I've been critical of Joe Brady over the past month or so, just saying like, hey, the passing game just feels very stagnant and blah. And I thought that he did a good job of picking up on some of the tendencies that the Bucs like to present to the table. I think about the Ty Johnson play. It was basically they did a motion to determine how many numbers were going to be on that side of the ball, and they got a 4-on-3 opportunity for players eligible on that side of the ball for the Bills, and only 3 defenders for the Bucs. And for those who maybe aren't tuned in with what the Bucs like to do, they like to bring up their linebackers a lot to the A gaps, which means they are a little bit more vulnerable on the outside. And in doing so, they have a numbers advantage out there. And even if Ty Johnson doesn't break that tackle 10 yards down the field, that's still a first down. So I want to give Joe Brady his credit of maybe expecting what the Bucs want to do in certain situations and taking advantage of it. And then also the James Cook play, where once again you are using the Bucs tendencies against them, where you know, like, hey, if we run James Cook through the C gap or believe the D gap, I can't remember which one he did, but usually when a running back runs a wheel, he runs it outside of the tight end. So where if you're a defensive end or anyone who was out there who was responsible for him, he crosses your face. So you see the running back and you're like, oh, okay, this is my man. This is how we went over it in film all the time. Go grab him. But that's not what they did. Instead, they inserted him to where it's not as natural for that player who's on the end line to just grab him. And it's kind of like one of those light bulb moments where you see the guy who's lined up over there. James Cook's already 5 yards down the field and he goes, oh, snap, that's my guy. So I just want to give Brady his credit for using some of the Bucs. You know, they're very aggressive, and he used that against them for at least those 2 crucial plays.
That wheel route thing is great because you're right. Most of the time, that's an outside the entire formation thing. And not only is it unfamiliar, but the defensive player who's on Cook has more time to react because Cook is going wider. This was, I'm going to look like I'm going wide and bang, upfield. And like you said, by the time anybody realizes what's going on, Cook is 5 yards open and he's in the end zone. So it was a great call. The other parts of it that I like too, the Ty Johnson one not only is good in terms of what Tampa has been in general all season, but in that possession, that was the end of the first half, they were blitzing 6 every single time, over and over and over, after being not so super aggressive the rest of the first half. To see that happening, to adjust on the fly and say, okay, you want to keep sending 6? Stop this. And then the Bills are in the end zone right after. I like that. We've been critical on this show about Joe Brady repeating the same play over and over. Like, it's funny the first couple times, but eventually you're going to end up in 2nd and 13. In this game, he stuck with the repeat idea, but he did it situationally, something you were talking about before. Both the Josh Allen touchdown runs end of the game were the same play, not back to back, but in the same situation. In the second half, he opened, I think, the last 3 drives with essentially the same play action concept. So you're not showing the same team the look over and over and over to where they can easily figure it out, but you are still going to something that works all the time, which to me has been the number one best part of what Joe Brady does. And then some of the creative stuff was good too. He hid the quarterback sneak very nicely on the first touchdown. It was a play that ended up in a sneak formation, but didn't look that way until the very end. And it wasn't quite inside the 1. It was kind of a yard and a half, not exactly a sneak formation. All that stuff together, to me, adds up to what you want out of an offensive coordinator when you have a number of advantages with your offense, guys who in general are just better.
Yeah, and I think about that game plan from the Falcons game real quick. The Falcons aren't 1-to-1 with the Bucs, but they like to send a lot of pressure and they like to be physical on the outside. And the fact that he learned from that previous mistake or previous downs, they just played bad against the Falcons, learned from that and had a much better game plan against the Bucs.
I want to take your temperature on where we are with the run offense because last 5 games, Atlanta, not great, a loss. Carolina, great, but who cares? Kansas City, great. That was awesome. Miami, really bad. Oh my goodness, both hands on the panic button. And then this game, not so good against the Tampa defense, run defense, that is pretty good. Is this fastball still the Bills' fastball, still something this team can count on?
I think as long as we see incremental improvements from the deep passing game, I think it will be something that you can count on. I look at that Dolphins game, and then I look at the last 2 weeks in particular, the safeties are not in the parking lot. The safeties are not in the end zone every single snap. In fact, that first drive of the game where the Bills were backed up, right before the snap, Antoine Winfield, who was the deep safety, was like 7 yards off the ball. That is the type of disrespect they show to the passing game, and I think that bleeds into how teams see the run. I mean, the Dolphins sold out to stop the run. I mean, they literally didn't give two cahoots about the Bills' passing game down in Miami. The Bucks are able to, like, they don't have to put as many resources because they have Vita Vea. So I think that's where it's a little bit more concerning. I still think it's a fastball. It may not be 103, but I guess 99. We can still work with that in the postseason.
I think so too. And even in this game to me was more about Tampa being very disciplined. Vita Vea is a part of it. To be honest, I didn't think he had a great game, or a very noticeable game at least. But on top of that, their corners and guys on the edge tackled real well. And when you have a group like that, it makes you really hard to run on. So this to me was more the opponent the Bills played, and yes, less what the Bills were doing poorly in the run game. And I don't think it's really anything concerning going forward. One last thing on the offense. I think right now we've reached the point where we can say Spencer Brown is a better offensive tackle than Deion Dawkins. And I think it's both ways too. I think Deion, we've mentioned it a few times. And every time we talk about Deion Dawkins, it's like, yeah, he's not playing up to his standard, but it's still pretty good. And I think that's true. But we've seen consistently now, we're 10 weeks in, and I've seen multiple games where I feel like Deion Dawkins has played better in the past. On the flip side, Spencer Brown is just a monster on the right side. Whatever he wants to do, block in the pass game, mow guys down in the run, move from defensive lineman to the second level. He's so athletic, so long. He knows how to use it, even when he loses. One of his blocks in this game that were my most favorite was a play where he got beat on the inside, probably gave up a pressure on no matter how you score it, but still was able to recover and keep that defender from becoming a problem. He has got to be, I know Jordan Mailata is like the coup de grace of tackles right now, but if Spencer Brown's not a top 3 right tackle, then I think we need to reevaluate how we evaluate right tackles.
And I think we're gonna get a real good test of like which tackle is playing better this Thursday. The Texans don't got one ace; they got two of them. Actually, for those who play spades, they got two jokers: Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter. So we'll get a nice litmus test of which tackle is who after that game.
All right, let's flip to the defensive side of the ball, and let's start with the run defense because, of course, we are. The Bucks dominated again. There are a number of different ways we want to go with this, but the thing that you brought up before we started recording here is the thing that I want to begin with in terms of what the second level is doing in support, because as much as there are issues on the D-line, and we'll get to that, you're right. The second level here, to me, was the big concern, and it's not just one or two guys.
No, I think everyone responsible for on the second level. So I mean, that's Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, Taron Johnson. Throw Cam Lewis in there, Dorian
Occasionally,
Williams,
yeah.
occasionally, Shaq Thompson, like anyone who is either a linebacker or a nickel. That's what I'm referring to here. I don't think the D line is great, but I think the second level is the much bigger issue in terms of the run defense woes, especially when the offense uses motion. Next Gen Stats had this, so this is who has the stats. The Bills are currently one of the worst, the bottom 5 in all metrics in terms of yards per carry, yards allowed, and touchdowns on plays where they see motion. That can't happen. It can't. Because if I know that, opposing teams see that. There's no reason why the Buccaneers got up on the center with Sean Tucker. They third string back. And I know he went to Q, so I'm supposed to give him his flowers. So shout out to 44. But still, the fact that they were able to do so on with him, and they just, what motion does is two things. One, it tests the eye discipline of everyone on the second level. So on the long Sean Tucker run where Tristan Wirfs got out in front and pancake Jordan Poyer, Taron Johnson is responsible for the motion, but he hits Terrell Bernard. He clips him. Out the gates, Terrell Bernard can't get to his gap. House call. I think about to the Falcons game where Tyler Algier, the first touchdown of the game, they went in motion. Everyone was looking at it, and everyone's too late to the gap. But the other reason why motion is effective for how the Bills like to play defense, it brings the safety into the box. Where instead of bumping over and bring the Sam or the nickel, you ask a 200-pound safety to come in the box and take on the tackle. And that's where some of the plays, most notably in the Miami game, where is a disadvantage? I don't care what safety you are. If Tristan Wirfs putting your hands on you, you're losing 11 times out of 10. And I think structurally, as well as the personnel they have out there, they are at a huge disadvantage when teams want to do this. And I don't know the fix. I don't get paid millions of dollars to do it, to fix it. But I can diagnose it, and that is a clear flaw in this Bills defense right now.
And it's disturbing because most of the guys we're talking about are experienced veterans who, frankly, should know better in terms of where to be, where to look, and those kind of things when it comes to playing this run defense. Individually, I thought Terrell Bernard didn't have a terrible game. He's clearly still nursing the ankle injury and slow in a lot of ways. The Baker Mayfield scramble play that before one of the short touchdowns, it was a third down play where the Bills sent a six-man blitz. They had everything covered downfield. Bernard's job is to cover the quarterback, and he's right there ready to make the play. And then Baker Mayfield, who's really not fast at all, just beat him to the sideline for 8 yards. So part of this is that injury, that you don't have a linebacker that in space can make up that ground. But that's just one small part of what's going on. Matt Milano, for the last few weeks, and I know he's coming off an injury too, has just been non-impactful top to bottom. And not only not being able to make the big play, but to your point, not even being in the right spot a couple different times. I thought the Sean Tucker touchdown pass to me, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, looked like Matt Milano not only not being there, but not even knowing if he should be there. He looked uncertain. And for a guy who's in year 10 or whatever, at least knowing where to be should be a number one part of what's going on with this team. So when we talk about this defense and the run game, there are just too many concerns to get into. Let me move to the defensive line just for a second. We'll go back to the linebackers after this. But Deion Walker, who we have thrown a ton of flowers at, has now reached the point where I think he's more of a problem than he is a benefit. He's still making good plays here and there, but teams have understood that you can block him with one guy. They do it quite a bit. You don't move him all the time, but you take him out of the play. When he is your number one run-stopping D tackle, and I don't think that'll last very long. I think Daquan Jones is healthy enough to reclaim that spot. That is still a big issue because when 96 is on the field, no one is worried about running the ball up the middle.
Yeah, and he's also a player where the motion can get him. And I'm not too certain. I never played D line, so I don't know if they are looking at motion or if they should be. But a bunch of those plays where he's just getting out leveraged to his spot on those situations. I keep going back to the Falcons game. That was in the entire first half where like motion here, run it that way, and he's just out leveraged off the jump. We talked about that Miami game last week where Achan, I don't even know. I think that play had motion as well, where Cam Lewis was up in the box and missed the tackle.
Yes,
Deion Walker got out leveraged as well in his spot. So I just think that I don't know if he's responsible for looking at motion. I highly doubt it, especially in the interior. Regardless, his eyes and his just point of attack strength has to improve consistently. Because like you said, there are some highs for sure. We got to make sure we clean it out and level it out.
To your point about the strength, that one of the thoughts I've had about preparing for this show to talk about Deion Walker is that I think in year 2, he may be a lot better because you go through the NFL offseason, you get built up in the weight room. This might be a significantly different guy in year 2. And remember, he's still coming off the back injury. That might still be a part of it. But I don't want to put out too many caveats about why Deion Walker isn't playing well. The truth is he's not doing enough at the point of attack defending the run here to help the Bills out in that area. I thought Daquan Jones was better. This is still a guy that certainly on the back end of his career, I don't know if you can count on him to be your savior when it comes to the run game. They just don't have enough pieces up front and in the second level to really make this work. And Tampa, who's not really, like you said, not a great run offense, they're a third string running back, and they still pretty much did whatever they wanted to. I thought it was telling that it felt, even watching the game first time, how determined the Bucs were to run the ball. They were going to come in hell or high water to put the ball on the ground. I don't care that we got Emeka Egbuka. I don't care that we got Baker Mayfield. We're going to give it to Sean Bleepin Tucker over and over and over, and they darn near stole the game doing it that way. A little more on the linebackers. When it comes to the pass coverage, I thought Terrell Bernard was okay when the ball came to him, but anything he had to chase seemed to be a problem. Matt Milano, too, with the Sean Tucker pass play. Bernard had some good plays and at least had the mental part of it to know where to be. And let me throw a question at you here, too. When it comes to Bernard and Cole Bishop to a lesser extent, there are a number of good plays where they'll make an interception or a big stop. We'll talk to the guys after the game, and they'll go on and on about how, oh, yeah, well, my coach said on Wednesday that if I get this, I want to look for this. Or when I see this motion, I'm going to step out here. There were a number of plays in this game, too, where it looked to me like both guys in the middle were on top of, especially jet sweeps, long before Tampa even snapped the ball. When it's apparent coaching is a big part of this, how do we draw the line between the coach was good and the player was good, to the point of wondering how good the player is, or is it just these coaches are so good you could drop any sufficiently athletic player into those spots and get similar plays?
I think, well, you throw me on the spot there, but I think one area, though, where I want to give coaches a lot of credit is third down, because that is more often than not their Candyland, like their world, right? Their coaches get to spend all week drawing up stuff and coming up with creative coverages, man beaters, zone beaters. And when you see examples of, oh man, this safety just looked like he was not fooled the entire time. I do want to give Babbage, McDermott, Adai the proper kudos of like, man, like they had these guys locked into this assignment. But then when it's man to man or when it's base downs, first and 10, second and 5, more often than not, you're not really getting exotic calls from the sideline. It's more so, hey man, we're in cover 3 here. We're gonna roll in late, go be a ball player. And I think that's where you can somewhat, you can't, it's not a 1-to-1, but you can somewhat draw more on the player and like he was just instinctual and he felt that. But I do think that is a fair point because on the outside, we don't really know who to give the proper credit to. Like, for example, the Cole Bishop interception, there's no coach in the world who is ever going to tell you just to leave your man and go be a ball player. That's just you being a ball player. But then there are other examples where it's like the Terrell Bernard interception against the Dolphins in week 3 or 4. That may have been a situation where he saw that on film, him and the coach workshopped it, and he was like, man, if I see this look, I'm going to trigger. That may be a situation where Babbage or McDermott give some flowers.
Let's move it right into Cole Bishop. That's where I was going next anyway. The continued stacking of very good days. And again, you saw the splash plays and then you watch the rest. There were a couple things I might quibble with, but for the most part, this was game 3 or 4 in a row where he is not only really impactful, but really competent doing his job back there as a safety.
Cole Bishop is consistently good now because before it was man, he's showing flashes. He's occasionally great, but where's the consistency? I've said it before on this platform. I had a coach tell me, I need you to be consistently good, not occasionally great. Because if you are consistent, we can count on you down in the down out to do your assignment. And there are just too many examples to count of Cole Bishop doing stuff in different areas of the field in different situations to where the Bills are clearly throwing a lot on his plate. Whether it's man coverage on a slot guy, man coverage on a tight end, rolling in late from the deep middle, playing the deep middle and just being a deep middle safety. I'm super excited to just watch his trajectory from here because from week 1 against the Ravens, where he would probably tell you that he didn't have his best game, to where we are now in week 10 or 11, to where he looks like a night and day player. And I'm sure there's a lot more growth. My man is only in his, 15th start at this point. Super exciting. And obviously a lot to do with that with Jordan Poyer and his infusion to the locker room, Sean McDermott, Bobby Babbage coaching him up. But it's super exciting to see his growth because I don't think he's finished, to be quite frank with you.
Let's talk about that interception play. I really want you to break it down for everybody watching and listening here. It's a bunch right formation where he's one of the 3 defenders on the 3 in the bunch. The whole bunch basically runs across the field, different levels, but it's essentially they're all going across. They're trying to run traffic between the 3 man defenders that the Bills have on each player. From what I saw, Cole Bishop had the short defender. Now it's a 3rd and 6 play, or the short receiver, I'm sorry. It's a 3rd and 6 play. That short receiver was about 2 yards downfield. Cole Bishop does not need to attack that route to prevent the first down. As he's coming across, he gets into traffic and actually knocks Taron Johnson off of Emeka Egbuka a little bit to open Egbuka up, which is the throw Baker Mayfield's trying to make. What happens next, Carl, is the thing where I want you to pick it up, because instead of diving down to the guy he's supposed to be on, Cole Bishop makes an incredible interception.
You know how I talk about all the time, I can draw it up on the whiteboard, but at some point you got to be a ball player. This is the perfect example of that because on the whiteboard, yeah, you follow that guy and that is your man. You follow him to the bathroom and you do all that stuff for him. Wherever he go, you go. But at some point, let's have some CS. For those at home, that's common sense. Let's use that sometimes out there on the football field. And when you are in man-to-man coverage and you are running past across the field, and once you get past the tackle, wide receivers are taught to look back. Well, I know that as a DB too. So like if he looking back, why can't I look back? And Cole Bishop clearly clears the tackle, the offensive tackle, that's what I'm referring to. And the ball's not out yet. So you can look back and start to be a ball player a little bit, especially like you alluded to, he is not the downfield target. You can rally to your guy, hopefully, and make that tackle. So once I clear that tackle, the ball's not out yet. Let me look back. Oh, Baker's looking down the field. Let me go be a ball player and pick this ball off and be instinctual and not be a robot. We've talked about ad nauseum on this program where Sean McDermott has had players where on the whiteboard, they are in the right place at the right time. The problem is the opposing staff also is really good and they can get their players in the right place at the right time as well. And that's where sometimes I need my guys to be guys. I need them to be dudes. And that's what Cole Bishop was on that play.
Speaking of guys being dudes, I want to go to the defensive line just for a minute here because although they were not super impactful on the score sheet, Greg Rousseau, I thought, had one of his best games of the year. The straight line rushes were good. The bull rushes were good. Look, if you went into a boxing ring and it was Greg Rousseau against Tristan Wirfs just in the pass game for the entirety of this game, I think Rousseau would have scored a unanimous decision. He was good all game long. To be honest, I don't think Tristan Wirfs is a great pass blocker, at least wasn't in this game, but give 50 credit because he's a guy that really has not been brought up a lot in terms of making an impact, changing the game. And yeah, there weren't 5 sacks, there weren't 6 turnovers, but he was constantly winning a battle against a tackle where you did not think the Bills would be able to get any sort of leeway in this game. So Greg Rousseau, I think, deserves a little bit of the flowers. Anything else from you in terms of the defense or the pass game going after the quarterback? We're going to talk about Max Hairston in just a minute, though.
Nah, not nothing in particular. The run defense is still a problem, and Cole Bishop is pretty good.
Let's real quick, the Max Hairston update. So he played half the snaps and weirdly was totally out of this game. Just wasn't attacked, wasn't involved, didn't have much hard to do. Now, speaking of things that are hard to do, he did have to face up Tristan Wirfs on a run play, and boy, he lost big time. And I know, look, there aren't many corners that are going to win that battle, to your point, but he did look like one of the smallest guys on the field going up against one of the biggest guys of the field. The play that was a little more concerning to me happened in garbage time on the very last drive of the game where Cade Otton, this is actually on the sack fumble, Cade Otton basically drives Max Hairston straight down the field, the Tampa tight end, and bowls him over. If Baker Mayfield looks over there, it's probably a 30-yard play, maybe a touchdown. I don't want to say that Max Hairston can't stand up physically, but when it comes to what the criticism, based on this one play, but when it comes to what the criticisms of Hairston have been, not so much the Wirfs play, but certainly the Cade Otton play was one of those that I think are a concern.
Yeah, and I think that comes with the territory of being a young guy in this league and optimistic viewpoint here. You still got to learn what you can and can't get away with, and maybe some other avenues that you got to combat that. Max Hairston is never going to be the strongest player on the field. He's always going to be, respectfully, one of the weakest guys on the field when it comes to the NFL level. But there are still ways you can work around that, maybe use your speed in certain scenarios to where, like, hey, in the SEC, I'm sure he played a lot of great tackles. I'm sure there were some players who are playing in the NFL right now. And you found out, like, oh, okay, like, give him a little 1-2, get around him real quick. Don't let him put his hands on me, especially because you're not allowed to cut these tackles no more. Yeah, Tristan Wirfs ain't them SEC tackles. I know they talk about the SEC is all this, that, and the third. Tristan Wirfs is a bad boy. He an all-pro at both left and right tackle for a reason. So it just comes with the territory and an optimistic viewpoint of, okay, I got burnt, put my hand on that stove. This is where some areas where I got to clean it up and take advantage of my strengths and use it against those guys.
Such a great point, because how many times do we talk in training camp? I think more with quarterbacks, but this probably goes for everybody. Training camp is a time where you can figure out what works for you. You know, can I throw that pass? Can I get around? Can I be this physical with a player this size? Or can I, instead make a two-step, like you said, around him? He's got to find this out in the middle of the game going up against all pros and tight ends and stuff. And I think there should be at least some leeway for allowing him to figure all that stuff out. All right, that's going to do it for us here on Let's Talk Ball. Remember, you can always find this program on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts as well. Crowd and I will be back next week talking about Bills and Texans. Thanks very much for watching and listening. We'll see you again right here on BKL Nightly.